ready for some football. I don't know about you. Who else could it be but your man Lou? Yeah.
Who else could it be but me, Louie T? Welcome to Saturday Night Football overtime. Titans, Jags, AFC South on the line. Winner is in, loser goes home. This was playoff ball, and I enjoyed every second of it. I knew the Titans would be game. I told you guys on Thursday's podcast, I said, or Friday, excuse me, don't count out Mike Vrabel. The chips are always stacked against him. You heard the number. It was some asinine number, like 54 guys on IR, or some craziness like that. It doesn't matter. Joshua Dobbs, who's been there for 17 days. We saw him last week start after he was there for 4 days against Dallas or whatever it was. Don't count this man out. I said, you're getting a healthy Derrick Henry back. You're getting big Jeff Simmons back in the lineup defensively. Don't count these boys out. And they had the lead with 5 minutes to go in this game. Really, they had the lead with 3 minutes and 20 seconds left in this game with the fumble there. And if you're a Washington fan out there, I hope you were watching and taking notes, because that's how it's done in terms of, in Mike Vrabel's case. Scared money don't make money. We had a game earlier this season where Washington had a game at home against the Giants where the Giants clearly weren't scared. They were going in with the mindset of, we're coming in here. We tied the last time. We're coming in here to win. We're not coming in here playing not to lose. Mike Vrabel's going for it on 4th and 4 early in the game where a punt makes a ton of sense. You think there's going to be a low-scoring game. Field position is going to be huge. You punt that football, pin them down inside the 10, maybe inside the 5, and see what your defense can do. No, he's like, nah. And to make matters worse, you got Joshua Dobbs at quarterback. You're probably thinking, yeah, I should punt this thing away. No, he never hesitated. There was never a thought of punting at midfield, 4th and 4. He rolled the dice, went for it, they converted. Then it's 4th and 3 on the next set of downs. He said, shit, we just went for it on 4th and 4, damn near in our own territory. You think I'm punting this one? Are you crazy? Goes for it again. They convert again. That's how you do it. On the road, you're going up against a team that's probably better than you at this point, healthier than you, playing with momentum. They've won 4 in a row, looking to make it 5 and clinch the division. You got to go in there and punch them in the mouth. You can't play scared. I admire Mike Vrabel, but in that same breath, I love this young Jacksonville Jaguars team, and they're coming of age right before our very eyes. This was not a good game for Trevor Lawrence. Okay, let the record reflect. And I think the world of Trevor Lawrence. I think he's going to be one of those quarterbacks. I told you the AFC is already loaded, and I think he's going to just add his name to the list. He's going to be up there with the Burrows and the Mahomeses and the Allens and the Herberts of the world. Jackson and Watson, if he gets his shit back together, and all those quarterbacks loaded over there on that side of the bracket. And I think he's going to add his name to the list before it's all said and done. But this was not a great showing by him tonight. Missed some throws, missed some opportunities that let the Titans have an opportunity to maybe steal this game. But the defense, I thought, was outstanding, and got to give credit to Jacksonville and the pressure that they provided late in this game, because one, you go into this game knowing you have to stop Derrick Henry, and he still got 100 yards. I think, let's check, because at one point it was 29 carries, 100 yards on the nose, but he might have lost some yards. Nope, 30 for 109. So you knew you had to stop Derrick Henry. You knew you were going to get a full workload from him, and you're going to have to hold up. The last time these two teams played, Derrick Henry had the most yards he had in the first quarter of his career in a game. He had over 100 yards in the first quarter against Jacksonville. The last time these two teams played, like 89 yards in the first quarter, some craziness like that. So they knew they needed to stop him. And for the most part, they did. There weren't any really big explosives. I think his biggest run of the night was 14 yards. Did have that one big run, but that was clearly holding on Chigakonkwo. So I thought they did a really good job. And when they had to get the stops late in the game, when they knew Derrick Henry was going to get the football, they did a good job of corralling him and forcing. Look, at the end of the day, the message was clear. Force Joshua Dobbs to have to beat you. and he couldn't do it. He threw a bad pick when you got a punter that's primed to set a new NFL record, which he did tonight, for the most net average for punts. The average, I should say. I don't think it's the net average. I just think it's the average punts. 53.7 or some crazy number like that. That's insane. Most guys are up around the high 40s. You rarely see guys get into the 50s, let alone 53. Like the record has been for, what did they say, 80 years or whatever, 70 years for Sammy Ball. I mean, you got to be talking about back in the 1940s or something when you talk about slinging Sammy Ball, right? So for him to break that record, you know he can kick it a mile, a country mile at that. I mean, don't throw a pick there, but I do think you have to give credit there. I want to say it was Arden Key who got a hand on him as he was. I do think, or Aikman was kind of like he wasn't sure if it affected the throw. I do think that affected the follow through of that throw, and I don't think he got as much on it. Not to say that Dobbs has the biggest arm in the world anyway, but I do think it affected the throw to where it was underthrown and it was picked off by what's the name of that corner? Boy, he's going to be good too. He's going to be a good one, man. He's having a hell of a season. I think it's the corner from Georgia. Oh, why am I blanking on his name? Yikes. It'll come to me. But that led to the points to cut it to 3. And I thought it was all downhill from there. Like, don't turn it. Trevor Lawrence is struggling, right? Like, he's not making the throws that a team trying to make the playoffs need to have completed. Make him beat you with a touchdown. Like that sequence of events that led to the field goal, to me, put them in a position where I thought they were going to lose the game at that point, because what you've effectively done is you've allowed Jacksonville to get to a point where they don't need a touchdown now. All they need is a field goal. So I thought they were going to lose the game. I thought Lawrence was going to tie this game up at 16. It was going to go to overtime, and the Jags were going to beat them in overtime. But, as fate would have it, they're looking to run out the clock, and a perfectly timed blitz by the safety, Rayshon Jenkins. He's been huge for the Jaguars this year, man. I mean, just play after play. He had the big pick 6 against Dallas in overtime to win that game. He's been huge this year. He caught a hell of a stiff arm tonight, but you just add him to the list of dudes that Derrick Henry has embarrassed on national television with stiff arms. No different there, but big play to force that fumble, scoop and score. Josh Allen with the presence of mind, not only to scoop that thing, but get it into the end zone. Don't leave it to chance with your offense. They've been struggling in the red zone tonight. Just go do it yourself. And that's exactly what they did. And I love the aggressiveness there with that call to blitz in that situation. Don't give him time to survey the field and see where he can go. Austin Hooper's been killing you on third down, sitting down over the middle of the field. Don't give him time to get to Austin Hooper. That was a perfectly timed blitz. Dobbs did not identify it, didn't slide protection to account for it, or at least give himself the awareness to know, hey, I've got to speed this clock up. Got a guy coming. He's hot. No one's picking him up. I got to get rid of the football. And the Jags defensively stepped up when they had to. You know, they made the plays in this game. Then you get a fumble forced on that final possession there by Josh Allen to put them in a 3rd and long situation, which they didn't want to be in. You know, with Joshua Dobbs at quarterback, you don't want to be in 3rd and 12. Then you get a false start to make it 3rd and 17. So they put themselves in a really good position to seal this thing up, and that they did. And so it's a big win for Jacksonville. It's been a great season, too, because I remember when the season first started and I talked to UCF Jaguar, and, you know, there were a lot of things being said about Trevor Lawrence and whether he can get it done. And there was a debate during the season. It reminded me so much of Josh Allen's career in Buffalo early on. Going into that 3rd season, there were people that still didn't think Josh Allen was worthy of being a franchise guy, and that this was going to, that was going to be a big season for him. And there were still people that weren't completely sold on Josh Allen and think that the Bills maybe needed to start looking, you know, just in case at the quarterback position. I was like, are you guys crazy? Man, took you to the playoffs in his 2nd season. Yeah, he did some crazy shit in that Texans game, if you recall, in that overtime. But nonetheless, he still got you to the playoffs. And, you know, we know what that situation turned into, and we know what Josh Allen turned into as a quarterback. I feel the same way about Trevor Lawrence. There were a lot of people that it just kills me how impatient fans are with players, specifically quarterbacks. It's amazing because a guy that with the talents and the skill set of a Trevor Lawrence, he's going to ultimately be good. Is he going to be great? That remains to be seen, but he's going to be good. They were treating this guy like he was a first-rate bust. Like there was no way he could get it done, and that they should probably start looking for another. Like there were people talking about that in that fan base. It's unbelievable, but here we are, Trevor Lawrence, 24 touchdown passes, now 25 after the night, 8 interceptions. He's taking care of the ball better, making better decisions. Yep, still missing some throws. We saw that tonight. Got a wide open Zay Jones back of the end zone. Can't miss that. Can't miss that. I mean, he could have thrown a punt up there. He could have thrown a 500 ball, and that thing would have landed in his arms because there wasn't a Titan defender within, as Aikman said, 10 yards of him, right? Back of the end zone. You got another one on a great release there by Christian Kirk. He got pressure there. Jeffrey Simmons, I still would like to see him make that throw. Then the icing on the cake was the one down the sideline to Marvin Jones. You got to give him a chance, man. He's got the defender beat on an out and up, and you just got to give him a chance inbounds, and he throws that thing 3 yards out of bounds. So he wasn't at his best tonight, but that said, he didn't make any big mistakes. Obviously, the fumble down as you're driving for points early in the game is a mistake, but you live and you learn on those types of things. He didn't even need to toss that thing. If you're going to toss it, just leave it there. And he literally tossed it like he was pitching it out to Christian Kirk. But whatever the case may be, he took care of the football as a passer. And that was what was important tonight. Like, don't turn it over, create short fields for Tennessee, put your team in a tough spot. And the defense rose to the occasion, made the plays when they had to be made. But back to the original point I was making, talking to UCF Jaguar, there were a lot of people that weren't on board with some of the moves that the Jaguars made. And I loved every move, including Christian Kirk. A lot of people thought, oh, they overpaid. I'm like, do you know Christian Kirk's a really good receiver? The only thing that you can complain about was he was getting number one wide receiver money, and he wasn't a number one in Arizona, and he hadn't proven himself yet to be a number one type of guy. Like, you look at a guy like Calvin Ridley in Atlanta before all of the nonsense happened with him, and he was playing alongside Julio Jones for all that time, and you're thinking, this guy's proven that he could be a number one receiver if given an opportunity. Sort of like Reggie Wayne when he was playing next to Marvin Harrison. A lot of people didn't think he could be a number one, and then we saw what he did after Harrison retired and all those years of him being one of the better receivers in football. Christian Kirk has that ability, but he hadn't showed it yet, so paying him that kind of money, it rose eyebrows, right? But or raised eyebrows. But I was confident that, one, if you're Jacksonville, you got to overpay. No one's coming to Jacksonville willingly unless you're going to pay them well above market value, which is what they did for Christian Kirk's services, and it paid off. He's been huge this season, set career highs across the board. You look at the Evan Ingram one-year deal. I wanted Evan Ingram so badly in Washington. I wanted Foye Oluokun so badly in Washington. You see what he's leading the league in tackles. You saw how big of an impact player Foye Oluokun is for them and has been for them all season long. You see what Evan Ingram has done for them, and he even improved as a blocker. He was doing some really good things there throughout the course of this season. He set career highs in catches, yards, all of that good stuff. And, Zay Jones also huge for them. And that was the guy that I said in the preseason, man, Zay Jones looks really good. I'm telling you, he looks comfortable, and he's going to provide them with something more than what they thought, because they paid him some good money too, coming from Vegas last year. So all those guys have stepped up. All those guys have set career highs. You still got the veteran Marvin Jones on the roster. It's a really good collection of receivers, and Lawrence is starting to get really comfortable with those guys. You add in Ingram as a tight end, and you look at Travis Etienne and what he's done this season. It's been a really good inaugural season for him, essentially, because last year was like a red shirt with him getting the injury to the foot. So it's a really good skill group, man. And I thought the offensive line did a really good job for the most part tonight. Brandon Sheriff got beat a couple of times late in the ball game, but outside of that, they actually did a bang-up job against what is a solid Tennessee Titans front that can get pressure on the quarterback. So all in all, man, that's a really fun team to watch, Jacksonville. I'm looking forward to seeing whomever they play. I'd love to see a couple of youngins duking it out next week. if at all possible. I would really like to see Jags and Chargers with two, big time young QBs going at it, man. That would be a fun game next week because I think Jacksonville could take the Chargers because I think the Jacksonville Jaguars are a team that you may be able to run the football on. Well, guess what? The Chargers don't run the football. So I think that would be a great Tyson Campbell. It just came to me. I'm sorry. I was in mid-thought, but boom, it hit me. Tyson Campbell. He's going to be good. Tyson Campbell. I wanted Andre Cisco. If you are out there, if you're a Washington fan, remember my mock draft? I mocked Andre Cisco to Washington. I wanted him so bad. They got all the guys that I wanted. A lot of you wanted Chad Muma. Well, he's in Jacksonville. He missed a big tackle at the end of this game, but still. They got a lot of guys that I wanted in Washington between Foye Oluokun and Andre Cisco. And I wanted to take a flyer on the tight end from New York. They got a lot of guys that are really intriguing. And so hell of a job by Doug Peterson too. Give Trent Baalke some credit for assembling this talent. Sheed Khan for opening up the wallet and paying guys. But more importantly, Doug Peterson had to get these guys to rally. They were 3-7 at one point this season. This was not heading in the direction of a team looking to make the playoffs. And, they rallied and won, 6 straight to finish up this season. And look at them now. They're 9-8 and they're playoff bound. And so, unbelievable finish to the season for Jacksonville. And wow, the Jaguars are going to the playoffs, man. Who would have thought? This season has been so crazy because who would have thought in week 18 the Jacksonville Jaguars would be at home with a chance to clinch the AFC South? The Titans, when they fired their GM, they were 7-3. 3 games clear of Indianapolis, not Jacksonville, Indianapolis in the AFC South. Green Bay was left for dead after, who did they lose to? I think it was the Philadelphia Eagles on a Sunday night was their last loss of the season to this point. We left them for dead. And here they are with a chance to clinch a playoff berth at home on Sunday Night Football. Who would have thought that the Eagles, who looked like, they were steamrolling everybody, that they would be resting guys week 17 if they would, so choose. Who would think they would be playing for a right to not be the 5 seed in the NFC on Sunday? I mean, it's insane, these conversations that we're having. But that's how this league goes. And if you continue to play ball, if you're well coached, you give yourself a chance, this is what can happen. And I'm a huge Doug Peterson. You guys remember me saying one of the biggest offseason, I said this the year before, I said that one of the biggest offseason acquisitions was a coach. Obviously, the biggest offseason acquisition last year was Matthew Stafford going to the Rams, but I felt like Dan Quinn going to Dallas was huge. Look what it did for the Cowboys defense. They went from a historically bad defense in 2020 to one of the better defensive units in football in 2021. I said one of the biggest offseason moves was that of Doug Peterson. I'm like, that's a great fit for a young quarterback trying to find himself. You talk to Trevor Lawrence, and he'll tell you, I wasn't playing with confidence. The biggest difference this year is confidence. Well, Doug Peterson instilled that confidence in him, and you see it. And what a game. What a win. And that was playoff football. I enjoyed that thoroughly. If that's a taste of what we're going to get tomorrow, Bart Scott, can't wait. And one more time, I can't say enough about the job that Mike Vrabel, has done in his career. This is his first losing season as the head coach of the Tennessee Titans. Who would have thought this would have been the season? Probably a little bit of, the football god stepping in and slapping him on the wrist because he was a little bit probably rambunctious in getting John Robinson fired. I think you'd be foolish to think he didn't have something to do with that. And I thought it was so unnecessary, the timing of that. And it's, I don't think, a coincidence that they didn't win another game after John Robinson was fired. You go from 7-3 or maybe 7-4. I think they were 7-4 after he was fired because they lost to Philadelphia, got destroyed. They were 7-4 and they don't win another game the rest of the season. I don't know if that's a coincidence or not, but probably the football gods just saying, hey, you guys were a little foolish and over aggressive unnecessarily in that situation. You could have fired John Robinson today, right now after this game, and not making the playoffs if things continued to go the direction they were going. You didn't have to do it in the middle of the week in like week 13. Like, that's ridiculous. So I think that at the end of the day, everything kind of happened the way it was supposed to, but still, what a hell of a job by Mike Vrabel, man. I marvel at his ability to get the most out of. And you know what? I was talking some shit about Todd Downing as a play caller. He had the DUI earlier this year. He was in some hot water. Titans fans probably wanted him gone. Look, you can say what you want about Todd Downing. He did some really good shit tonight, man. And I've watched him throughout the course of this year. He's done some creative shit, man, because there's not a lot in Tennessee. I can't stress that enough. There isn't a lot, to utilize in Tennessee. So, there were some play calls tonight where I'm like, that's beautiful. Like the tight end screen to Chigakonkwo, down pinned up against your own. That's gorgeous. That's nice stuff, man. Like the Chigakonkwo touchdown that put him up 10-0, where you line them up in the backfield. That's some quality stuff, man. Like they did some really good stuff. And if Dobbs could have made some throw, I thought they had a chance to Chigakonkwo up the seam. If he makes a better throw there, that's a touchdown. So they had their opportunities. I thought Todd Downing actually did a really good job mixing in screens and just kind of making the game easy for Joshua Dobbs, not putting him in too many bad situations. That said, they just don't have enough, man. That's part of the reason John Robinson got fired. I didn't agree with the timing of it, but the reason, and yes, the injuries are huge, and we know the story of the Titans and all the injuries that they've had, but they don't have a lot of depth and talent on offense. They didn't have a lot of talent to begin with. So once you started getting injuries, really was going to show that they didn't have a lot on the offensive side of the football. But with that said, Mike Vrabel, right there to the end, they were up 16-13 with roughly 3 minutes and 20 seconds to go in this game before Dobbs is hit from behind and fumbles the ball, and it's scooped up and scored by Jacksonville. So he had his team in a position to steal one on the road and somehow improbably send his Titans to the playoffs, but it wasn't in the cards. The Jags get it done, and it's a fantastic game, and I enjoyed every bit of it. So we'll talk about the first game real quick. So that game went exactly the way I thought it would. Chiefs dominated the Raiders 31-13. It was never really close. The second play of the game, Mahomes hits Justin Watson on the 65-yard play down inside the 5-yard line. And from there, it was just kind of downhill for the Raiders. Mahomes does that Mahomes thing where he scrambles last second, tosses it to somebody. Usually it's Jerick McKinnon. Shh, don't tell nobody about the secret weapon known as Jerick McKinnon. What did I tell y'all about that dude? I've been talking about Jerick McKinnon since he came in the league in 2014. Loved him coming out of Georgia Southern, and he's been everything I thought he was, even with the injuries. He's been everything I thought he would be. 9 receiving touchdowns this season for Jerick McKinnon, most by an NFL running back, I think, in history. 9 touchdowns receiving, you don't see that from a running back. But he's more of a receiver, to be honest, that can run the football. But that offense, and the most impressive thing about what we watched with the Chiefs today, if you watched, had to be Kadarius Toney. You're looking at this dude and you're saying, damn, Giants. If you could have just figured out a way to get this kid's head on straight. Like, the only reason he's fallen in line is because he's with a winning organization. It's amazing the effect that has on a young player, right? You can F around with the Giants. What are they going to do? Get rid of me? They suck. They need me, right? So you can hold them, right? You go to Kansas City and they got all these weapons. They're used to winning. They got an MVP and the Super Bowl winning quarterback in Mahomes. Like, they don't need you. They don't need me. So you got to fall. And that's what Belichick would do with guys that other teams didn't want. i.e. Corey Dillon was supposed to be a malcontent. Randy Moss supposed to be a malcontent. He would take all of those dudes, Chad Johnson, even though it was just a cup of tea. Antonio Brown. Like, that's what they do in New England. They take those dudes in, because they've got a winning culture. Either you're going to acquiesce, you're going to come in and you're going to conform, or we'll get rid of you. It's not a big deal. You know, they even gave Albert Hainsworth a run in New England. But it was so much fun to see Kadarius Toney out there breaking dudes off. And what he adds to that offense, he adds a Deebo Samuel type element to that offense that if he is able to stay healthy and do the things we saw him do today, it's going to be tough, man, because they already were so diverse. I said this at the beginning of the season when they made the trade and got rid of Tyreek Hill. I said, you know what this is ultimately going to do? It's going to be addition by subtraction. I'm not telling you they're better off without Tyreek Hill because Tyreek Hill is Tyreek Hill. However, it's going to force Mahomes and defenses, which is the most important part. But even Mahomes will tell you, it's forced me to be a better quarterback because now I can't just say, hey, either 10's going to get open or 87 is going to get open. One of them is going to win for me. I'll just wait for one of those guys to get open. Now he's got to go through progressions, and he's got enough guys, Valdez Scantling, Juju Smith-Schuster, Justin Watson, Travis Kelce, and now you add in Kadarius Toney. You got Sky Moore. You got Mecole Hardman. There are all these weapons. He's thrown touchdown passes to 11 different receivers this year. You add Kadarius Toney in that mix, and they become that much harder to stop. So, and they haven't had Mecole Hardman for what seems like an eternity. If he's back, because now they've got the number one seed in that first round bye. If he's back post-bye, add in Kadarius Toney. Look out for the Chiefs on offense. So they were very prolific today. They've been playing really solid defense. Frank Clark did get hurt in this game. The bye is going to help them there. But the thing about the Chiefs that you worry about is that secondary. It's extremely young. And if they can find a way to get enough pressure on the quarterback, to not expose those young corners, they're going to have a chance again to – I don't think they'll be hosting because I still think Buffalo's going to be there when it's all said and done. I don't think they'll be hosting the AFC Championship game this year, but they'll have a chance to be in it again for what would that make it? The fifth consecutive year? Let's see. 18, 19, 20, 21, 25th consecutive year. They will be in it for the fifth consecutive year. So they look good. Raiders, my buddy called me today. And he asked me, what do you think about Jarrett Stidham? And I said, you can't dismiss him. If you're a Raiders fan and you're just assuming, I think the Raiders are going to end up with a top, 7 pick or so, 7 or 8, somewhere in there. You can't just dismiss him. I've seen mock drafts where I think I looked at 3 mock drafts. 2 out of the 3 had them taking a Will Levis out of Kentucky. And he's adamant that they're not going to take Will Levis. Now, he's not saying they won't go after a quarterback, but he doesn't think Will Levis fits what they want to do. We'll see. But he asked me, what did I think of Stidham? And I said, I wouldn't discount him as the long-term answer. Again, he's not under contract after this year, so they'd have to re-sign him. But remember, Josh McDaniels was there in New England with this kid. They really liked him coming out of Auburn. Remember Stidham's career at Auburn, really skittish, but the talent was there. One of those guys that underachieved while at Auburn, but super talented. You saw the mobility, you see the arm talent, you see everything that you need to see with him. He's big, got some size on him. Everything is there. He checks all the boxes. Now it's, can he be consistent? You really haven't seen that because he hasn't played enough. I wouldn't be surprised if the Raiders, if they don't love Will Levis or Anthony Richardson. How could you love Anthony Richardson? I don't think he's got a game only a mother could love. Right? If you're enamored with that, by all means, go ahead and knock yourself out. But he's got bust written all over him. If I'm a team, I'm not touching Anthony Richardson with the 10-foot pole, not in the first round at least. You take him in the second round, knock yourself out. I got no issues with that. But I'm not spending a first-round pick on Anthony Richardson. That said, he should have gone back to school. But if you don't love Will Levis, I would not draft a quarterback if I'm the Raiders. And I don't know if they're going to. I could see them bringing back Jarrett Stidham, giving him the nod next season. And this seems to be everyone's go-to plan, right? Because you see Caleb Williams off in the distance, right? So this seems to be a lot of fans' take. I've heard this from Washington fans already. Well, And they're in a similar spot to the Raiders. Not as high in the draft, but they're not that far behind. But similar situation. Stidham got the start last week, so he got 2 starts to finish up the season. Sam Howell's going to get this final start. And if you see enough, I've already heard fans say, hey, just roll with Sam Howell. If he's good, you got a quarterback. If he stinks, you get Caleb Williams. It's not that simple because you're not going to stink bad enough to find yourself in a position to get Caleb Williams. So it's not that simple. Someone's going to suck worse than you. Okay. You've got to absolutely be the worst team because he's going number 1, right? So he said, well, I think we should roll with Stidham. And we can go elsewhere. There's going to be a lot of talent, sitting there for us to take. I think we should, roll with Stidham if he's good because I like him. I like what I've seen. If he's good, we got a quarterback. If he's not good, we can get Caleb Williams. I'm like, well, I'll add you to the list of fan bases who seem to be making that claim right now. But I'm intrigued by Jarrett Stidham. I don't know if the Raiders are in a position to pass up a quarterback opportunity. I'll just say this, and I told my buddy this. I chastised the Raiders back in 2021 when they had the 4th pick in the draft. And Kyle Pitts is sitting there, and I'm like, bro, I get it. He's very tantalizing. He's a rare, specimen and breed at the tight end position. I know you still have Matt Ryan, but understand that Matt Ryan is on his last legs, okay? We are in the final days of Matt Ryan. He would play one more season in Atlanta before being traded. I said, do yourself a favor. You're sitting there at 4. You do not know when the next time will be when you're this high in the draft to get yourself a quarterback. Do yourself a favor. Take either Justin Fields, homegrown product, or you take Mac Jones, who is a splitting image of Matt Ryan. You've already got a stationary quarterback. So if you're transitioning from Matt Ryan to Mac Jones, it's the seamless transition, right? So, Jones can sit a year or Fields can sit a year behind Matt Ryan, which is what would have happened. Then you start that guy and you start the new chapter in the Atlanta Falcons history. Instead, they went with the tight end. Now they're kind of stuck in limbo. I'm telling you right now, Desmond Ridder isn't it. You can win football games with Desmond Ridder. You're not winning a Super Bowl with Desmond Ridder. And you're kind of stuck now because you're in the middle of the pack with a guy like Desmond Ridder. So don't be that team. If you're the Raiders and you feel good about Will Levis, pull the trigger. Jarrett Stidham should not prevent you from drafting a quarterback if you really feel that way. But they did not look good today, did the Raiders. But that was to be expected. So we'll see what they do next year. But the Chiefs lock up the number 1 seed with the 31-13 victory. Mahomes looked good. I think Mahomes locked up the MVP today as well. He surpassed Drew Brees for the most total yards in an NFL season for a quarterback. I'm still baffled at how Drew Brees was able to do that himself. He's not a runner because obviously most of it was throwing, but Mahomes is a guy that does use his legs. He's probably got every bit of 100 or 200 yards rushing on the season. There's Mahomes, so you can see how he could do it with passing, rushing, and then I heard he caught a pass this year, I think for like 6 yards, something like that. But I think he's locked up the MVP. So we'll see about that as well. But anyway, if you're out there, you want your comment read, you know what to do. Use the hashtag LouieTLive to have your comments read on the air if they're pertinent. If you want to jump straight to the front of the line, super chats are the way to do that. And so off we go. Let's take a look at the comment section and see what you guys have to say. Will Kavanaugh starts us off tonight. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Will Kavanaugh, thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, it sucks being a Washington fan, watching Jacksonville and Detroit possibly make the playoffs. It does suck because those are 2 prime examples of well-coached football teams. Well-coached football teams. Neither one of those teams are where they're at. You heard what Doug Peterson told his team when they lost to Kansas City, and I think that dropped them to 3-8 on the season or something like that. he told his team, I got a crystal ball, and that crystal ball has us playing in week number 18 for the division against the Titans. I don't think he had a crystal ball. It was more like one of those 8 balls that you shake up. You ask a dumb question, and it either says yes or no. He had one of those, but it worked out in his favor. Again, as Troy Aikman said, I love Troy, very eloquently. It doesn't matter if Doug Peterson believed that or not, because I don't even know if he believed the shit he was saying. All that matters is that the players in that locker room bought in, and you see the end result. And Detroit's in the same boat. They were 1-6. We're the Lions. They were left for dead. And now they're a Seattle loss away from controlling the outcome of their season. It's amazing. But that's what good coaching can do. Did you guys see the Washington Post article from Sam Fortier that had 9 players in the article? Of course, unnamed, right? Anonymous players, but still, it doesn't matter. 9 guys said that they had an issue with play calling in Washington. We'll just leave that there. Just leave that there. And Ron reads the paper. So, Ronald, do your job. Do your job, buddy. All right. Spence Collis, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Spence. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Writes, congrats to the Jags. They did what we couldn't. Shameful. I love this young Jacksonville Jaguars team, and understand that they also do, in addition to coaching, which we've put a lot on coaching, quarterback matters. We all know this to be a fact. With better coaching, we would have been in the playoffs, but with better quarterback play, we'd have been in the playoffs too, right? So understand that they have Trevor Lawrence, and we had a combination of Carson Wentz and Taylor Heineke. Understand that, okay? Understand what we have versus what they have. So keep that in mind as well. But it doesn't change the fact that we had our opportunity. We were sitting there at 7-5, and we blew it. We haven't won a game since we got to 7-5. So yeah, shameful is correct. Video channel, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Video channel writes, it's amazing to watch dudes like Vrabel and Peterson coach their teams. They have to come back and watch Ron and Scott cosplay in NFL apparel. yeah. Isn't it like night and day, right? Watching professionals at work versus the clown show that we watch on a weekly basis. And I'm a little harsh on Ronald because I feel like he's good enough as a motivator. I don't love him as a game manager, timeouts, challenge flag, all that shit. He seems to be lacking in those departments. But I like Ronald as a motivator. I like him as a guy that can get the players prepared to play. Now, less of that this year. The Giants game, the Browns game, those were games where we looked ill-prepared in the biggest spots of the season. But that said, and I think the Browns game was more about the decision to bench Heineke. I think the players really weren't on board with that. And I think it showed with the performance, how flat we were. That said, it is amazing to watch Campbell in Detroit, Andy Reid, watching the better coaches around the league, because even some of the teams with good records don't have necessarily great coaches. But it's fun to watch some of these guys that are coaching it up, and showing us what it's supposed to look like. The Cubone, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Congratulations to your Jacksonville Jaguars, the Cubone, man. You were hyped for the season. It didn't go the way that you thought it was going to go. After a great start to the season, going to the LA and destroying the Chargers and looking like a real NFL outfit, and then really having the bottom fall out of your season thereafter. This has to be sweet, man. This has to be sweet. The Cubone says, what up, Lou? What's going on, Q? What a season. And it's not over yet, man. What a regular season. Like, don't claim that like you expect to lose next week. What a regular season, man. Shit's not over. You could be Joe Burrows, Remember, he was a second-year quarterback. They got in, won the division. Nobody was really paying attention to them. And next thing you know, you look up there in the Super Bowl. That could be your team. Probably not, but that could be your team. But he says, and it's not even over. Okay, sorry. I said all of that, didn't even read the next sentence. And it's not even over now. Duval! He says, defense definitely stepped up, not only tonight, but every game from the last 5 wins. Indeed. They definitely stepped up. They weren't good against Dallas, but they were good when you needed them to be in that game. But you gave up 34 points. So, yeah. But the defense stepped up. Each of the last 2 weeks, you gave up 3 points. You give up 13 tonight or 16 tonight. And so it was another strong performance by this defense. They've really stepped up, and they're coming into their own at the right time of the season. So it's definitely been a great season for you guys. And it's fun to watch that young team kind of come of age. It's always fun to watch, young teams getting it. The Phillies Ace 34. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, Louie, my friend, you're the man. My friend, go beat Dallas like y'all did to my Eagles. Speaking of my Eagles, do you think that beating the Eagles was the catalyst to y'all failure, or did y'all overlook the big pitch just for revenge? Nah, the Eagles game really it was what helped spark our season and turning it around. Like, that gave us the confidence to go win the next 3 games or whatever it was we won. I think it was 2 more games. We beat you guys, Houston, and then Atlanta, because we had just lost to the Vikings. That sparked the turnaround. Like, Heineke was playing okay, but that Eagles victory was like us showing, hey, when we play the brand of football we're capable of playing, we can beat anybody. And so we carried that momentum into Houston, and then we beat Atlanta. And so we were riding high. It just, at the end of the day, we were in those games that I just mentioned outside of Atlanta, and it was wet and nasty that day. We were scoring points and we were forcing turnovers. Those were the 2 variables that early in the season we weren't, changing, right? We weren't scoring points and we weren't forcing turnovers, and we were turning the ball over. We were winning the turnover battle, and we were taking those turnovers. Even if it was a bunch of field goals, we were still scoring points. We scored 32 against Philadelphia, 23 against Houston, and then 19 against the Falcons. And again, it was a nasty day. So 19 was acceptable there. But after that game, we really started to see the red zone inefficiency really become a problem. The turnovers never really went away, but the difference was we were creating turnovers. We forced 4 against Philadelphia. We forced like 2 or 3 against Houston. We forced 1 against the Falcons, but it was a big one, right? We didn't force. I don't think we forced any turnovers after the first Giants game. I know we forced a turn. Okay, so we had 1 against San Francisco, and that's because the receiver literally tossed it to our safety. But we didn't force any in the second Giants game. We forced 1 against San Francisco, but we turned it over like 2 or 3 times ourselves in that game. And then we didn't force any against Cleveland, and they had been turning it over against everyone. So we self-destructed, man. We did that to ourselves. It had nothing to do. And I'm just going to tell you right now, we're not going to beat Dallas. So don't hold your breath. You need to take care of your own business, because we're not going to help you. Just so you know, we're going to get our asses handed to us. Spence Kalis, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, bigger failure, us or the Titans? I guess you could probably say the Titans. I mean, they were controlling that division. It's not a strong division. You were up 3 games with like 6 to go. Like, there's no way you were supposed to collapse the way that they did. But again, in their defense, Ryan Tannehill, not healthy, out for the season with, ankle surgery. And, the list goes on and on with all the guys, Taylor Lewan, and we could keep going on and on and on. Harold Landry, their pass rusher. And I mean, so many guys out with injuries. It's not even funny. And so, yeah, that plays a part, but you got to find a way to win. I mean, literally, they're playing their last 2 games with Joshua Dobbs, who got there 2 weeks ago. I mean, the fact that they're even in this position is startling, but the fact that they were even in this position is still mind-boggling with the job that Vrabel has done to even give them a fighting chance here. So it's still a bigger failure because they had no business, throwing that division away. All they had to do was beat Houston, beat the Texans, and you have a chance on Thursday night last week against Dallas to lock this thing up. Find a way to win 1 or 2 games in that stretch, and they couldn't beat anybody, including Houston. So at home, no less. So and they deserve what they got. But I think they were the bigger failure. We weren't leading a division. We were a 1-4 team. Like, they never sucked, did the Titans this year. Not until the end of the season. We sucked early on, made a run, and then went back to sucking. So I think it's them, but doesn't make our situation any, more palatable. Door Gunner, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, about to head to the airport to fly up to the game from Miami, meeting my Dallas friend for the annual trip. Wish me luck in this bloodbath. Do you really need luck here, man? Like, there ain't enough luck in the world to help us in this one, bro. We on some little giant shit. Yeah, Cowboys, win. Commanders, help us, God. That's what you should be on. And, have fun. I just gave the tickets away to Dandrix, the mob winner of the 2 tickets. And he said, bro, I don't think I'm gonna be able to bring home the dub. I said, I didn't even ask for that. Did I ask for that all week? Did I challenge, the winner of the tickets to bring home the dub? You know what you got? I didn't say any of that shit. You know why? Because you're not bringing home the dub. I told him, man, go have a good time. I treated him like he was my son going out on his first date at 15 years old. Son, go have a good time. All right. Don't stay out too late. Here are the keys, man. Have a good time. Be safe. We're not winning the game. So I'd love to wish you luck. I'll just tell you, safe travels. Have fun. Will Kavanaugh, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Will Kavanaugh writes, Ronald Sink-a-Boat Rivera needs to grow a set and fire Turner. Meanwhile, we're watching creative plays today. Did you see the Chiefs in the huddle spinning around? Then they fly to the line of scrimmage and do this crazy play where Mahomes they throw the Mahomes the ball. He throws it back across the field to Kadarius Toney, who scores a touchdown, but then they call, I thought it was a phantom holding call that they called. And so it backs him up 10 yards. And then the next play, they just give it to Kadarius Toney on a handoff. And he runs it for a touchdown anyway from like 14 yards out. I'm like, they were determined to get Kadarius Toney a touchdown, no matter what. But that's Andy Reid and company, man. They are so creative. And they're having fun, man. I mean, that's a fun group to watch. But we saw creative play calls. The JAX, even the one that they fumbled, that was a cute design on that little reverse. And it was going to score if Lawrence doesn't, throw a hot sauce to go ball to a guy that's running right next to him, and Jamal Agnew, like, dude, do you need to throw the ball that hard or high? What are you doing? But yeah, we saw some cute play calling, man. We most certainly did. Mike Stevenson II, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, Big Lou, Mike, what up? Think we get the 1 seed tomorrow? Yep, I do. Jalen Hurts is playing. The Giants, they're going to come out and they're going to play, but they're not better than you. Even if Hurts is compromised tomorrow, isn't himself, 70% of Hurts is better than 100% of Gardner Minshew. You go out there, you let Hurts do the things that he's capable of doing. You probably got to scale back him as a runner, but just get the ball to A.J. Brown, get the ball to Devontae Smith. They got no answers. You're going to win the game. It may not be as easy as it was the first time when you destroyed them, but you're going to win that game. You're going to get the number 1 seed. I definitely believe that. The Phillies Ace 34. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, I know you owe us nothing, but Dallas can take y'all lightly with Dak turnover prone. There's a chance you're right. We need to take care of business. Understand that Deshaun Watson was turnover prone coming into the game last week, and we didn't even come close. Like there wasn't even almost picked him off. There wasn't even one of those. He was never in danger of fumbling, a near fumble. He was never in danger of a pick, a near pick. None of that. Man was as comfortable as he's been since he's come back from his suspension. 3 touchdown passes, no picks for a dude that was turning it over every week and most weeks multiple times. So this will be the week Dak doesn't turn it over at all. This will be the week. So again, I warn you ahead of time. Don't worry about us. Don't scoreboard watch. All you got to do is win. Take care of business. Don't look for us to help you out because we are not offering any services in Landover, Maryland. Okay? Punks jump up to get beat down. We are going to jump up to get beat down on Sunday. The Phillies Ace 34. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, Louie, I meant to say Happy New Year to you and yours. I did take a shot with you, but I am glad I follow you even though you root for Washington. I'm glad that you, my friend, are a part of the MOBB despite being an Eagles fan. Come one, come all. I really appreciate you. And I told you, the goal is to bring in as many, because I keep it a buck. We might talk shit about each other's squad, but at the end of the day, real recognize real. And you looking real familiar over there. All right. So I appreciate you, man. And I look forward to chopping it up with you. And we'll be talking about your Eagles in the playoffs, whether that's the first round bye, and we're talking about your Eagles in the divisional round, or you slip up and get caught slipping on Sunday and you're the 5th seed and you're playing a wild card weekend on the road against Tampa. Either way, we'll be talking about your boys in the postseason. So look forward to doing that, man. But again, appreciate you and Happy New Year's to you and yours as well. All right. So we got some time left. We'll get to some of these hashtags. Actually, I just got another super chat, so I will take that one. This one is from my guy, Mike H. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Mike H. writes, what's it going to take for Washington to get Chicago to come off of number 2? Great question. Me and my buddy were talking about it. He's a Raiders fan, and he said that is one of the most profitable picks he's ever seen in NFL history. And he's not wrong. There's been some ransoms that have been had, that high in the draft with a team looking for the quarterback. I don't remember what the Browns got in return for Carson Wentz for trading out a number 2 to the Eagles for the Eagles to come up to get Wentz. But it's whatever it was, this is going to exceed that. This is probably closer to Robert Griffin III ransom that the Rams got from Washington when Washington essentially gave up two ones. Everybody likes to say 3, but they were swapping ones, right? Washington went from 2 to 6, or from 6 to 2, and the Rams went from 2 to 6. So those were swaps. Then they got 2 additional ones in the next 2 years, first rounds in 13 and 14. I wouldn't be shocked if it's something along those lines, with a player or 2 thrown in and still giving up like a 2nd and a 4th as well. Like they're gonna break a broom in half with splinters and all, and they're going to sodomize someone, and it's not going to be pretty. And and this is the beautiful part, is that they don't need a quarterback, and they're 2. If there were just one, then they would have just missed out on cashing in. But because there's 2 of those boys at the top of this draft, there's 2 prizes. You don't get the first prize because whomever doesn't draft number 1 and whoever doesn't go 1, somebody is falling into 2, and both of those guys have franchise quarterback written all over them. Washington is going to have to give up a lot. Again, the price, this is the problem with this particular price. The price of the pack went up. when you look around and there's like 5 or 6 other teams staring at the Bears and saying, hey, what's his number again? No, the GM. Poles, what's his number in Chicago? They got that shit on speed dial. Carolina's going to hit him up. Indy's going to hit him up. The Raiders may hit him up. You know, who knows what Seattle's going to do with Geno, but I'm pretty sure they're going to have Geno back. But it's a lot of teams. Tennessee is probably in that mix now that they've lost the division and they're finishing the season at 7-10. They're right there probably like, yo, let me get this dude on speed dial as well. If you're Chicago and you're giving this thing up, you would prefer to send this to an AFC team, right? You don't want to give an NFC team a quarterback that could do you for the next decade plus. That's a team that, you know, could keep you out of the playoffs. Nah, I'd much rather do business with Indy, Tennessee, somebody on the AFC side of the bracket. So I'm looking at Carolina and saying, hey, I'll call y'all back, but I'm really not looking to call y'all back. If I get an offer from an AFC team like Vegas or Indy or Tennessee, that's the phone call I'm answering and saying, hey, you got a deal. Washington, you call me. Hey, I'm going to do the same thing I did to Carolina. Hey, I'm going to call y'all right back. Hey, don't go nowhere. I'm going to call you right back. I ain't calling your ass back. But since you asked, I think it's going to take 2 first-round picks, a second, a fourth, and you got to toss in one of these defensive linemen, probably a Montez Sweat or somebody like that. That's if I'm Chicago, that's what I'm looking for. Straight up. Want Montez Sweat. He's got 1 more year on his rookie deal. I'll take that off your hands. I'll take 2 ones, and we'll swap ones, obviously. So it'll be 3 total, but it's really 2 first-round picks in 2024 and 2025. And then I also want a second this year, and then I'll take a 4th next year. So, I mean, and at this point, would any Washington fan blink for a deal like that? I wouldn't even blink. I say, hey, Tez, you need help packing, bro? I got you. And I'd send those picks away with the quickness. But I don't think it's going to be Washington. I think it's going to be an AFC team. I think it's Indy or it's, you know, Tennessee or someone along those lines that are just absolutely desperate for a signal caller. Anyway, I digress. Niners fan writes, Devin Lloyd, Trayvon Walker, Josh Allen, Cisco, Tyson Campbell. I love that defense. Also, Campbell might be top 5 cornerback. He's been locked down this year. Tyson Campbell looks damn good, man. Damn good at the cornerback position. And that's a good Jags defense. It is. It's a young defense. They're still growing. I like how they supplemented that thing. You know, good draft picks. You just mentioned a bunch of guys that they drafted, a lot of homegrown talent. But I like the move to go get Rayshon Jenkins from the Chargers. I love the move. You know how I felt about Foye Oluokun. You know, getting guys like him and Fatou Kassi, you know, inside as a defensive lineman. Like, they're making all of the right moves to really fortify that team and give them a chance to compete at a high level for the many years to come. So, Niners fan says the Jags will definitely lose to the Chargers if Lawrence plays the way he did today. He missed way too many throws. I don't disagree with that assessment. Because you're trying to win a playoff game. First of all, you're probably going to have to score more than, you know, the 13 that they had. The defense doesn't come up with that play. I'm not sure that Lawrence leads them on a touchdown drive. I think he leads them on 2 field goal drives and they win the game 19-16 in overtime. I don't think he leads them on a touchdown drive, but it would have been fun to see if they would have gotten a stop, forced a punt, down 16-13. That would have been a coming of age type of moment for Trevor Lawrence. I would have loved to have seen what he would have done in that situation. It never came to that, but it'll be interesting. Mike H, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Mike writes, thanks, Lou. No doubt, man. And look, I'm speculating, but this is the reason why I think the cost of doing business is going to be so high because there's so many teams desperate enough. And now you're getting into a bidding war, essentially. What can you offer me? What can you offer me? What can you offer me? And I'm pitting teams against one another, which is going to push up the price of what it's going to cost to make the deal happen. Because if there were only two teams interested, well, you're just bidding against one other team, But remember how much the 49ers gave up for Christian McCaffrey? And it was because the Rams were interested. And you see how much they gave up. We were like, whoo, that's a pretty steep price for a running back. But it's because they had to. The price got pushed up because there was another team, putting in bids, forcing that price to go up. That's how it's going to be. Like the Bears are in total control of that pick, whether it's one. If it's one, that price goes up through the roof because now whomever trades for that gets to pick which of the two quarterbacks they deem to be the best. If it's number two, the value goes down slightly, but you're still getting one or the other, and you feel like just like San Francisco in the 2021 draft, when Kyle Shanahan traded up to 3 blindly, he didn't know who was going 1 and 2. He suspected that it was going to be Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson, but he didn't know that for sure. That meant he had to be comfortable with 3 quarterbacks because 2 were going to be gone before he selected. That's how you got that. That's how you're trading up to number 2. You're comfortable with either one of those dudes because nobody really knows what's going to happen at 1. CJ Stroud put on a hell of a performance in the playoff game against Georgia. If you weren't sure about him, you should be after that game. And keep in mind, Bryce Young is 5'11". Okay, he's 5'11", if that. Okay, still a hell of a football player, but he's not the biggest guy in the world. So you could get some teams saying, you know what, give me the prototypical, quarterback, the guy that's 6'4", 220, mobile, big arm. Yeah, give me that guy instead of the 5'11" kid. But it doesn't matter. I'll take whatever one you don't take. And so the Bears are in a great spot. So it's going to cost you wherever they're at, it's going to cost you. And if they're at number 1, it's going to cost you even more. Mike Stevenson II. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who says, damn, Big Lou, who you trading for? Jesus? This is what you got to understand. I've made this abundantly clear. In this league, there's the haves and the have-nots. And the haves have a quarterback. The have-nots don't. It's really simple. If you don't have a quarterback, you do not have a chance in this league. End of discussion. Washington is a walking poster child for that statement. If they have better I've already said this. Even with the shoddy offensive play calling, the inability to get your playmakers matchups in the red zone and, situational awareness that is just awful. Even with all that said, Ryan Tannehill at quarterback, we're in the playoffs right now. So a team like Indianapolis, who just went through 2 seasons where they just missed out on the playoffs, and then this year they were a laughingstock. You don't think an impatient owner like, Jim Irsay isn't going to be like, and look, their GM's on his last legs. Chris Ballard right now, he has to save his job. So at this point, you're doing whatever you have to do to save your job, which means if I got to go up to number 2 or 1 to go get the quarterback, then that's what I'm going to do. So it turns into a bidding war, man, between Indy, Carolina, potentially, Tennessee, Washington. There are a lot of teams, Vegas, a lot of teams interested around, sniffing around that number 1 or 2 pick with Chicago. So because of that, the price gets pushed up. It's less about who you're trading up, even though that's important too, because you're not trading up and giving up all of these resources for a linebacker or a corner, or if you weren't sure about one of these 2 quarterbacks, you're not going up there. But these are 2 guys that I think most draft people feel like these guys are going to be successful quarterbacks at the next level. So got to do what you got to do, man. Vincent Coe, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy, Vincent Coe, writes, Lou, if my Hawks somehow make the playoffs as a 7th seed, which potential NFC 2 seed teams you think we have a chance to upset. Highly unlikely, but oh well. If you get in, I think it's already set in stone. You'd be playing San Francisco because the 49ers are going to beat Arizona. The Eagles are going to beat the Giants, and you're going to end up playing the 49ers in that scenario. So you'll be playing a team that you know very well, and you'll have a chance to beat them because you played them close on a Thursday night at home a couple of weeks ago. And I really thought that game had a chance to really be flipped upside down if your safety, Diggs, if Diggs makes that pick. I mean, and your boy Brock Purdy threw it right to him. I mean, right in his chest. And he dropped it. And he doesn't usually drop the football. All right. So that game easily could have been different if he catches that football. You guys know them. That's family business. That's probably the best matchup for you, honestly speaking. I mean, no one's afraid of Minnesota. So if the Vikings were there, that would probably be even better, technically speaking. But you could give them a run for their money. You know them. If Dallas if Dallas wins and Philadelphia loses, San Francisco would go to the 1 and Dallas would go to the 2. I don't like that matchup for you. It wouldn't be impossible. And with the way Dak is turning it over, you'd have an opportunity. Absolutely. But I think their front can get after Geno. And this is the thing I like if you were to play Dallas. I still think they have issues stopping the run. I still think you can run the football successfully. And if you have a healthy Kenneth Walker the third, I think you could do damage against them on the ground, personally. But you got to get there first. All you can do is take care of what you can control, which is beating the Rams. All right. Speaking of the Rams, what did I tell y'all about Sean McVay? We're going to have a discussion about that another day. I'm not going to bore you with that today. Vincent Coe, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, is the TCU QB a good backup QB prospect? Yeah, I think Max Duggan will be a solid backup quarterback for somebody. But there are too many people that are trying to convince themselves that he's a starter in this league. I'm glad that you said, is he a good backup prospect? Yeah, absolutely. Take him on day 3. You know, you stash him away. You give him reps in practice in the preseason. And, you know, that's about it for him. And I think there are certain teams around the league where he might hold a little bit more value. If you got a mobile quarterback in there, like a case in point, a good backup spot for him might be Philadelphia. You know, mobile quarterback, very similar build to Jalen Hurts, very similar game to Hurts. Hurts is probably a much more polished passer of the football, but very similar skill set. You know, places like that. I think he would fit in Baltimore, even though he's not as fast as Lamar Jackson. You know, again, another place where there's a mobile quarterback in place. Mariota, what he was doing in Atlanta, I think they can do some of the same things with Desmond Ridder. I think that would be a good spot for him as well in a place like Atlanta. So, yeah, places like that, I think he'd fit in kind of, well there. So, anyway, I digress. MYKG2 or Mike. I think that's supposed to be Mike G2. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Mike G2 writes, hey, Lou, what's up, Mike? Says, late arrival tonight. Do you think Ronald will be convinced to move on from Scott if tomorrow goes horribly wrong? If it takes tomorrow going horribly wrong to convince Ronald that Scott's not the man for the job, then Ron's not the man for the job. He should already be well aware of the failures of Scott Turner this year, and he should be well aware of the fact that we're not going to the playoffs. And a big part of the reason why is because of the decision he made against the Browns to not pull Wentz, not to start Heineke, but to not pull Wentz when he showed you early in that game that he wasn't it, that he didn't have it. He wasn't going to create that spark that he was looking for. That you didn't have this team prepared, and that you were coaching scared against the Giants the second time around, punting and things of that nature. Then you want to get all brolic on the road against San Francisco and then against Cleveland the following week after that. Now you want to be ballsy. Now you want to go back to being Riverboat Ron. But in the biggest game of the season, you bitched up. So, yeah, you're responsible. But above all else, between the quarterbacks and their inability to be as efficient as we needed them to be, and your play caller being absolutely horrid in the most crucial situations, i.e., inside the 2-yard line against the Titans, inside the red zone against the Giants, yeah, he needs to go. If you need a bad performance with half of your roster out against Dallas to convince you that he needs to be fired, then you need to be fired. So hopefully Ron already knows what's really good. That's the hope. Will Kavanaugh, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy Will writes, so cool what the NFL and ESPN flipped on to 3 mics on did for Hamlin. I think everything that they've done has been super classy for Damar Hamlin. And, the show of support league wide with the painting of the threes for every team in the league that's at home. I think it's a great idea. Super dope. The ceremony that they're having on the field, most of the teams are doing something for him. We saw a big prayer before this game with Jacksonville and Tennessee, both teams holding hands in a circle at midfield. I just think they got shirts for every team that they're wearing pregame. I just think they've done everything, even down to how they handled the not playing the game and home field advantage and all that stuff. The Bengals feel like they've got the short end of the stick with the coin flip thing. That's another discussion for another day. We'll have that on the podcast. But look, you weren't going to appease everybody. I've already said that. Someone was going to be pissed off at how things went. Like the Bills they were the number 1 seed. All they had to do was keep winning. Now they don't have that opportunity. The Chiefs get the number 1 seed. So, forget about home field. How about that? Just the rest, the bye week, not having to play a game in wild card weekend. Now they have to. So, yeah, I think everything they did was the right moves, so yeah, it's been pretty dope, man. It's been pretty dope indeed. All right. Let's see. Red Wing 01 writes, he did it. He actually did it. Words can't express how happy I am for Trevor and the Jags. They fought hard to get here. Got to give, I'm assuming that was supposed to be Dougie, his flowers too. He battled tonight, or that's probably not who you were referring to. I don't know who the hell Donna is. Anyway, it was a fun game to watch. Dobbs, that's who you're referring to. Dobbs, okay. He says Dobbs. His flowers. Stupid autocorrect. Yeah, I get it. Pure defensive struggle. Trevor really wasn't on his A game tonight, which shows that he still has a ways to go, but I'm excited for his future. Absolutely. He definitely was not on his A game tonight. He said it after the game. He said, I got to play better. We got a lot of things we have to correct. But even in saying that, even in doing that, it was definitely a gutsy performance by the Jaguars for a team that has fought their asses off to get to this point. And now they're in the playoffs. Let's see. Miss Perry writes, the Jags handled their business like they were supposed to, and now will be in the playoffs. Congrats to Doug P., Trevor Lawrence, and them boys from the 904. Indeed, man. It's just amazing watching from where they were. We were just saying, same old Jags, just a month and a half ago. Same Jags, same trash ass Jags. Here we go. And now look where they are. Playoffs, and they could win a game. They could win a game. If I'm them, I want the Chargers. I really don't want the Ravens, even though they've already beaten Baltimore. I would prefer to play the Chargers if I'm them, but we'll see who they get. Because the Chargers don't score a lot of points. Red Wings writes, and Mahomes breaking a single season record for total yards. I know people will say it needs an asterisk with 17 games, but it's still an incredible accomplishment. Yeah, it is. I mean, so the asterisk thing doesn't really exist because as the amount of games increase, and we'll eventually get to 18. I think 18 is the next stopping point, and we'll be at 18 for a very long time, and then eventually the owners will get greedy, and we'll get to 19. But I think much like how we were with 16 for probably like 50 years, it was at 14, for a long time, and then somewhere in the 80s, it swapped over to 16. Let's find out. Let's get a history lesson today. When did the NFL go to the 16 game schedule? 1978.
According to Wikipedia.
1978. So it took them from 1978 to 2021. What are we talking about? 88, 98, 2008, 2018. So you're talking about 43 years before they made the switch. I think you could see them get, I think 18 is the next stopping point. So we might be at 17 for another 2 years, and then it's 18. Right? They reduced the preseason by one more game, and then you get to 18 regular season games, and then I think we're stuck on 18 for the next 30 years. And then the owners get greedy and they say, "Hey, we don't need the preseason at all. You get one preseason game, 19 regular season games." You see where I'm going with this, but once you get these types of changes, like O.J. Simpson ran for 2,000 yards in a 14 game season, and then along comes Eric Dickerson and sets the new record. It hasn't been broken yet. 2,100 and I think 5 yards is the record that he still holds. Adrian Peterson came dangerously close, but that was in a 16 game season. Nobody is putting an asterisk next to that because that's the new norm, right? 17 games will be the new norm. So still a hell of a feat, as you mentioned. Still a hell of an accomplishment. Jay writes, Jags, Lions, and Giants all have 8 or more wins, something Commanders haven't seen in 7 years. Yeah. I get sick and tired of talking about shit like that. That's why I really wanted us to win this year, because I got sick of people talking about Ron Rivera's inability to get more than 7 wins. So I was like, okay, change the narrative, dude. Just beat the Browns so people can shut up about that. And here we are talking about, and he's not going to win on Sunday. Here we are talking about another 7-win season for Ron Rivera. And it's getting to the point now where it's becoming a real thing. At first I was poo-pooing it and dismissing it like, okay, whatever. Now it's like, it's a real thing. You can't win more than 7 games. That's the narrative. And you've got 3 years of 7 wins. Like, that's the thing now. 1 year was like, oh, he just got here, really bad roster. What an accomplishment to win 7 games with this roster, right? Second year, there were more expectations. I didn't have high expectations because you brought in Ryan Fitzpatrick. But 7 wins after you were 6-6 going into the final 5 games of your season, not ideal to finish with 7 wins, lose 4 out of your final 5. This year, expectations through the roof for me. I can't speak for anybody else. My expectations were high. I've already laid out the reasons why the expectations were high. You see what the rest of the division has done with the schedule that was presented to them. We had an even easier schedule than most of those teams, and we still found a way to manage to muck it up and only win 7 games. It's amazing. But to your point, you look around the league at teams that are perennial losers, and they're all turning their shit around, and we're still stuck in the mud. We're still in quicksand. And the harder we fight, the faster we seem to sink. Sucks. Will Kavanaugh, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Will, writes, you read my comment wrong. I was saying ESPN made the E look like a 3. Oh, got you. Yeah, I mean, that's cool. I didn't see that, but everybody's doing something with that form of the 3. So I just love it. I love the fact that, and as we were talking about, the unity that has come from this has been incredible, And I think this is one of those situations that transcends sports. So this is some Good Morning America type shit where they're talking about this on the Good Morning America and the Today Show type shit. So yeah, they talking about this on CNN, It's big time stuff. Anyway, I digress. We hit the 120 mark, so I'm about to get out of here. Let's see. I'll see where I left off. I might take 1 or 2 more before we get out of here. All right. Mustango writes, Washington needs to address the coaching staff this offseason. It would be really helpful to do it this season than next so we can be in the mix for competitive football and not delay it. That's the problem with that is with ownership being in flux. It's rare to see ownership come in and clean house that late into the process. Again, if Daniel Snyder were prepared to sell right after the Super Bowl, that would change things, right? If there was change in ownership by the end of February into early March before the start of the new league year, absolutely, we could be having that conversation. But this thing isn't going to take place until probably after the draft, right? And even if it does before the draft, let's say best case scenario is late March into early April. You're not firing an entire staff literally weeks before the draft. Are you kidding me? Because if you fire Ron Rivera, you're firing the entire organization from the GM down, essentially. Means the scouting staff is fired too. So who's going to actually set your draft board? Who's setting your big board? Like, it's impossible at that point. If you're going to do it, you have to do it now. And even that's not a good idea because, again, if you fire everyone right now, you're firing the GM. Who's drafting players for you? Now, if you get someone from somewhere else, he's probably been doing work. He's going to bring some of those scouts with him and he'll be able to formulate. But then you're asking him to come in, assess the team that he wasn't with last season. It's a lot. It's a lot. It can be done. Teams do it every single year. But my point is, this team isn't going to be sold until at the earliest late March, early April. That's my best guess. And there's no way you're firing the staff at that point. So Drew Sosky, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Love your thumbnail. That's supposed to be Klay Thompson. Titans had just the worst downfall midseason I've seen in a long time. Yeah. I mean, like I said, I think it was the football gods slapping them on the wrist for firing GM John Robinson seemingly out of nowhere. It was really unnecessary. Again, they could have been very disappointed after that Eagles loss. You can't be that disappointed with your GM that he traded away A.J. Brown and then A.J. spanks you for 2 touchdowns and big ones at that. But still, you get shellacked 34-10. You can't be that upset that you fire him on the spot that minute. Like, that's insane. That was random. It was unnecessary. And they didn't win another game the rest of the season. And I don't think that's a coincidence. You could have been as frustrated with him as you were. You could have said, you know what, he's on thin ice. We'll see where the season goes. Then see what happens with the season. And then you could have fired him after the season. Even if you got to the playoffs, won a playoff game, and you still was not happy with the A.J. Brown trade and you wanted him gone, or you weren't happy with the roster the way it was constructed, then, yeah, you get rid of him after the season. But, yeah, that was a hell of a collapse. But, again, they had so many injuries, man. Golly. I mean, if they had Ryan Tannehill, we're not having this discussion. Straight up, they would have won 2. They would have won 2 more games. Jacksonville would not have been in a position. The Titans would have won 9 games this year. and Jacksonville wouldn't have been in this position to win the division right now. They would have beat Houston with Ryan Tannehill, is what I'm telling you. They would have won another game somewhere. They might have even beaten Dallas with Ryan Tannehill. Straight up, with the shit Dak was doing in that game, they probably would have beat Dallas. But, yeah, it's crazy. Anyway, I digress. All right, that's going to do it for me. Your man, Louie T. I thank you guys for joining me. Look forward to chopping it up with you again tomorrow. What a day of football it's going to be, man. Lot of action, nonstop. These next 3 weeks of football, this weekend, next weekend, and the weekend after that, it's a football fan's paradise. It doesn't get much better than what we're about to embark upon the next 3 weeks. And then after that, it gets lonely. You know, they start taking football away from us, and soon you'll be relegated to watching NBA on Sunday afternoons. Whoopity-doo. 3:30 Golden State Warriors against the fill in the blank. Wow, can't wait for that. Yay. But forget about that. We got a full slate tomorrow of meaningful football games across the league. Next week, cap it off with Sunday night Packers, Lions, and what the Seahawks do in the 4:00 hour will go a long way in determining if that's a win and you're in, or if it's just Green Bay needing to win to get in. But then we get from there to a play. And I forgot that we get a Monday playoff game. I forgot about that in Wild Card Weekend. So you're getting 2 games on Saturday, 3 games on Sunday, and then an additional game on Monday. I forgot about that. Did you guys remember that we got a Monday playoff game? I didn't remember that until they showed the actual schedule. And I'm like, oh, shit, we got a Monday playoff game. So, man, Bart Scott can't wait. Anyway, I digress. You guys enjoy the rest of your evening. We will reconvene tomorrow. Washington fans, I'll see you tomorrow post-game for the Washington and Cowboys game. And then Sunday Night Football, I'll be live for that after the game as well. Sunday night, Packers and Lions. Family business across the NFL landscape doesn't get much better than that. If these 2 teams said they ain't did it, then they ain't did it. But if they did, well, that's family business. And this was some good one. Congratulations to the Jacksonville Jaguars. You, my friends, are postseason bound. Let me just say this before I go. I meant to say this earlier. Did you even know that there were that many Jacksonville Jaguars fans? I didn't even know that many existed. That stadium was rocking when they gave them a reason to cheer. I was so proud of the Jaguars fans for showing up tonight. Look at that. The Jags actually have fans. Good for y'all, man. Congratulations. Enjoy. Celebrate. I reeled off 6 straight to finish up the season and make the damn playoffs. Go have some fun, man. Enjoy the playoffs. 20-16 Titans fall. They are out. Now they'll be looking for a quarterback, more likely than not. We'll see what happens. But anyway, I'll see you guys tomorrow. You guys take care. As always, God bless and good night.
LouieTeeNetwork.